You are floating down the water when a strange current begins to suck you faster along your way. You're mildly concerned, but you ignore the sensation and neglect to take any action. At the moment that you begin to wonder, should I stop myself, you see the white rapids plainly in front of you. The first series approach. Your eyes harden and your concentration narrows. Your breathing and heart rate both begin to race. Knowing now that you have waited too long, you know that impact is inevitable. With tense muscles, you thrash against the water to clear. But barely you do, only to find that your efforts have facilitated a collision with the next rock. Seeing you are too late to make any effective attempts, you brace for impact as you careen. You hit. A blast of pain courses through you. You collide with another rock and another. Disequilibrium and chaotic motion resound through your body. Your mind screams, "This is excruciating. I'm in such pain. I'm helpless." With internalized focus and narrowed concentration, you're unaware that you've cleared the first series of obstacles, only to feel the inescapable call of the current pulling you furiously, pushing you. You're swept into a whirlpool created by the chaos of the river rapids. You begin to descend lower and lower. As you do, debris cascades over you, rending your flesh, sending searing pain throughout your body. The current twists, inverting you. You swallow water. You cannot breathe. You reach the bottom. You have just been swallowed by the vortex. You are floating down the river. Early, you are detecting the current increasing. You feel the tug and you respond by scanning the river ahead. Around a bend, you see that the rocks protrude from the water, and you hear the sound of rapids in the distance. Needing to get to your destination downriver, you make the conscious decision to go forward through the impending chaos. The current accelerates as the rapids approach, and you see the first obstacle. You facilitate the inertia by swimming with the current, by angling to slingshot beyond. Monitoring forward, you see a series of rocks to negotiate. One directive in mind, you deliberately choose to pinball yourself through the course. Increasing your velocity, you swing by the first rock, the second, the third, the fourth, bouncing off each with your hands. It is at that time you notice your muscles begin to tense, your breathing increase, your heart rate begins to pound. Each time you collide into a rock, you let go of the distraction as you expand your awareness to detect future threats. Now you feel the tug, the pull of fear, the draw of anxiety. You feel yourself begin to concentrate on the sensation of being pulled deeper around the edge of doom. Exhaling, you begin to swim into the momentum. Now you feel the tug, the pull of fear, the draw of anxiety. You feel yourself begin to concentrate on the sensation of being pulled deeper around the edge of doom. Exhaling, you begin to swim into the momentum. You relax your movement and go with the flow of the current. You slingshot out of the vortex and find yourself in total control, indistractable. You move in slow motion as if you could take 100 strokes when you only need a handful. You enter the peak performance zone. The performance spiral, the psychodynamics of flow state, either upward or downward, either the zone or the vortex, is the culmination of stress physiology, sports psychology, and combat reality. As those three disciplines meet, we have the creation of a new field, and in presenting this material for the first time, I want to ensure that we see that this is a systematic process. Look for how integrated you can impose upon someone the downward performance spiral while internalizing within you the upward performance spiral so that you remain in the zone while pushing him into the edge of the vortex. Psychodynamic profiling is the evaluation of his psychological orientation in combat. We're going to be probing him. Remember, in Weaponizing Your Architecture, I spoke of a performance probe, determining what his somatic profile is through manipulating his somatosensory stimulation. This is going to go one step further. Psychodynamic profiling is understanding where his concentration and focus lies, where his awareness is. Awareness is the intersection of concentration and focus. These two intersecting lines determine where he's perceiving, what he's aware of in the particular fight. If you look at concentration as having a dimension that runs from broad to narrow, and focus, whether internal or external, the intersection creates four unique psychodynamic profiles that are not negative in and of themselves, but either appropriate or inappropriate to the physical activity that you're engaged in. What I mean by this is, let's start with attending. Having an external focus and broad concentration is what is requisite for being in a fight. With everything that's flying at you, everything that's happening, all of the pre-incident indicators, all the pre-attack cues, all the attack itself and the incident itself, and all the post-attack and post-incident cues, you need to be able to accommodate all of those variables at once, so you need to be in the world itself. As you start to narrow your focus, narrow your concentration, and keep your focus external, it's as if you're shooting a free throw, or sinking a putt, or hitting the target. You've reduced your attention to intending to hit something. Intending. Over here, with an internal focus and a broad concentration, this is where you're thinking about what's going on in the world and how you can plan, how you can strategize and develop your ability to accomplish something in the future. This is great for mental rehearsal. This is great for if you're wargaming out whatever your particular theater of conflict happens to be. This is where your awareness has to lie, in that domain. Fantasizing is what you need for optimal use in your personal practice. You need to be aware of not only what's happening to you somatically, but viscerally. You need to feel what's going on in your body. You need to think about how that impacts upon you and what events are happening within your body as you narrow your focus and internalize what you're doing. This is positive in and of itself when you have appropriate designation of your psychodynamic profile to your activity. Notice that I have this structured in a way that is hierarchical. I have it structured this way for import. Attention is what you need for a fight. Fantasizing is what you don't need. And it's this psychodynamic profile that determines where we're going to be taking the opponent. Once a person starts to head into intention, when he's intending to hit something, that intention blinds him to everything that's happening. We're going to be getting into this explicitly. If you have a goal in mind, a specific goal, and you're looking at that sugar leg or that false target, that creates the opportunity for you to be led astray. You can't start narrowing your concentration. You have to keep it broad. But we can use that to our advantage when we're imposing this on an opponent. We want to take him out of attention. We want to force him into intending. We've all heard about the ADE feedback loop, assess, decide, engage. A person that keeps on trying to access a strategy within the conflict, it ends up in a cluster, ends up in trouble. You can't try and develop a strategy once the actual event's there. You have to have a pre-incorporated strategy. So if we can force him to start thinking and internalize what's happening, if he starts to think, I see all of this, but I'm not exactly sure what technique I want to apply. He's very fast, but I feel stiff. We start him moving downwards into fantasizing. Fantasizing meaning, if we can make his thoughts declarative, if we can start him thinking to himself, I'm not fast enough,
He's moving. He's too strong. This sucks. This hurts. As long as you make those declarative statements happen, now you have someone locked in fantasy. They're not in the world. It's not reality. Unfortunately, most martial art training is fantasy world. It's not reality. Reality belongs up here. And as we see how we can take our psychodynamic profiles and categorize what we encounter in an opponent and see how that impacts on us so that we have the appropriate psychodynamic profile ourselves at any point in our training, whether we're strategizing, wargaming out, whether we're fantasizing and developing ourselves in our daily personal practice, intentioning where we're working on our precision through specific fluid drills, or attending when we're in dynamic drills and we have to open up our process. We can marry in our psychodynamic profile for optimal usage. What we'll see is this corresponds directly to the downward performance spiral of heading into the vortex and the upward performance spiral of getting into the zone and keeping the edge. In Weaponizing Your Architecture, I spoke about somatic profiling. Somatic profiling is determining what state of fear reactivity, what aspect of fear reactivity he manifests, whether that's concentric, isometric, or eccentric, where he's resisting, and how that impacts your particular strategy. Somatic engineering is something we spoke about in particular in arthrokinetics with the disintegration of his breathing movement and alignment. Well, that's only part of a larger cycle with visceral engineering and psychodynamic profiling. If we look at psychodynamic profiling, when we have the four aspects of the four profiles of psychological orientation, there's a cycle that's involved. This is going to be discussed in greater depth throughout the course of this material, but somatic profiling is only one aspect. The somatic profile impacts his visceral profile. His visceral profile is like his heart rate, his breathing rate, his blood pressure, all of the things that happen that transform inside of him that cause internal distractions. The internal distractions which affect thought processes, emotions, his psychological orientation, psychodynamic profile. The more that you impact his visceral function, his breathing, his heart rate, the less he's able to concentrate, and the more you impact his focus, which affects the somatic once again. If you have him becoming internal and narrow, his somatic profile becomes dense. He starts to tense his muscles. Remember how we discussed this? His muscle density, his fear reactivity starts to trigger, which sets him again into a downward spiral of impacting his visceral function, which back and forth. I want you to take this profile and put it on the top of this vortex. And this is what we're going to be talking about. The performance spiral, DPS and UPS, the downward performance spiral and the upward performance spiral. The upward performance spiral is the zone, and the downward performance spiral is what I call the vortex. This diamond in here is our psychodynamic profile, where we have the intersection of awareness with focus and concentration. Up here at the top is attention, fantasizing down at the bottom. This is not merely a negative feedback loop, the profiling. The more you impact his psychodynamic profile, the more you impact his somatic profile, the more you impact his visceral profile, the more you impact his psychodynamic profile. It's a downward performance spiral. And as we continue to talk and introduce this system, I want you to focus on understanding how performance is inextricably intertwined with psychological orientation, somatic orientation, and visceral orientation. Our strategy is going to be attacking him so that we impact his performance through these three strategies, while simultaneously working on maximizing our performance profile.